Dragon Con is a convention for sci-fi, fantasy, gaming, pop culture,
extreme close-up love! Whoa!
and anything you can think of. It happens every Labor Day weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and this is my 7th Dragon Con. Most of my Dragon Con experience this year was operation as usual.
ID and blue card at number 20 over there.
But it started out a little differently. Because of my breast cancer diagnosis in January of this year, I had to go to radiation treatment the morning of the first day of Dragon Con. People kept asking me, "So are you going to dress up when you go?" It was kind of impossible, actually, because I would have had to just change out of my clothes anyway. Why don't they have Spider-Man in my room?
No.
Radiation for me at the Winship Cancer Institute starts at 7:30 a.m.
Back in there sitting around the corner back there in a little office looking at a computer screen. I know they're just playing video games.
Radiation for me only takes about 15 minutes. But it's a really important part of the treatment process because it helps to prevent the cancer from coming back. Once my radiation treatment was finished,
Way to stay still.
I was able to start Dragon Con 2014. From there, I started getting ready to cosplay as a modern-day Maleficent, which is something that a group of friends of mine and I were going to do. We were going to cosplay as modern-day Disney villains. So we had Maleficent, me, we had a Queen of Hearts, we had a Cruella de Vil, and we had a Jafar.
This is Midtown Station. Esta es la estación Midtown.
I commute to Dragon Con, so when I was walking up to the MARTA station, I got my first reaction to my costume. There was a man sitting on a bench who saw me walking across the street who yelled, "Are you a witch?" Another man approached me who said, "Hey, talk to this kid in this car over here." And I was like, what? So I turned to my left and saw that there was indeed a kid in the back seat of a car, and the mom was trying to talk to the kid. "Hey, look who that is. Look, that's Maleficent." So obviously she knew who I was. And the kid looked at me and started going, and just crying. So at that moment, I knew my costume was a success.
I do love coming to conventions. I love to see the craftsmanship out of people and the creativity and the unjudgmental atmosphere. And you can just be yourself and geek out all weekend.
One of my favorite reactions to me dressed as my modern-day Maleficent costume was when I was in the Peachtree Center food court. A little girl, she must have been 6 or 7, came up to me and she said, "Oh, I love your costume." And I asked her, "Do you know who I am?" And she said, "Maleficent! I love Maleficent." And I said, "I do too." And I asked her if she liked my puppet. And she asked, "Can I pet him?" So I bent down so that I was level with her, and she pet my Diablo like it was a real bird.
We do a lot of cons all over the United States, and what I really love about Dragon Con is that it's for the costumers. A lot of other places are involved in a lot of media, celebrity things. But this place is just for the people who do costumes, and people come from all over the world and bring their A game, and you see the best in the world here.
My friends and I got our pictures taken by Brian Humphrey, who does a lot of Dragon Con cosplay photo shoots.
It was made on a lathe with spun aluminum, and see, there's where it's attached to the lathe. Then the stars bolted on, and it was painted with an enamel, but the movie used anodized aluminum. I work at a lot of conventions, actually working the events and working booths and stuff. And Dragon Con is my vacation con. It's the only one where I come and I can actually suit up, hang out, and not have to worry about being somewhere at a specific time. I mean, I spend my entire experience mostly just here in the Marriott, hanging out with everyone, being goofy, taking pictures in spandex.
The day I dressed up with my friends, I kind of had my schedule free so that I could walk around with them and we could kind of do stuff together. So I didn't really have a set schedule, but there were 2 things that I wanted to do that I didn't get into because it was so crowded. One of them was a Firefly panel, and Firefly is huge at Dragon Con. Every time I've tried to get into a panel, I get turned away because there's just so many people there. And that's what happened this year as well. One of the other things that I really, really, really wanted to get into but didn't was Dragon Con wrestling. I discovered this last year. I'd never heard of it. But in the Hyatt, they actually have bona fide wrestling. Rings, wrestlers, fans booing, everything. And it was so much fun last year. But when we got to the Hyatt, they wouldn't let us in because of, I guess, fire hazard type situations, which is weird because last year you could walk in and out at any time. So we thought that that's what it would be like again this year. But apparently once you're in there now, you're in there for good. So I was a little disappointed that I missed wrestling, but I'll make a note of that for next year. One of the things I had never done at Dragon Con before that I checked out this year was the costuming contest. I think they do them every night, but I went to the one on Friday night. Awesome costumes, stuff I hadn't even seen when I was walking around on Friday. But the best part was at the very end when they're trying to decide who wins the contest. And they do it by applause. So they go around to each contestant and you clap and cheer for whoever you think should win. And while they were standing on stage, there was this really great costume of this robot that was made out of a Segway. That robot Segway rolled backwards off the stage and fell off. You could almost hear the person inside the costume going, whoa, 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 whoa. And at first it was very concerning because we didn't know what happened to this person in the costume. Nobody heard anything, nobody was saying anything. But after a while, the Segway robot popped back on the stage, and it turns out that was the winner of the contest. So the Segway robot totally redeemed itself. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, but I was hanging out with some huge Lord of the Rings fans. So one of the new things I did at Dragon Con this year was go to the elf choir. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's singing songs about elves and whatever Lord of the Rings things there are. It was fun, but it was kind of in need of some help. They had somebody who was playing the keyboard but was not doing a very good job. So someone in the crowd actually volunteered to get up there and sight read the music and help us keep the beat. If I was giving recommendations for next year's elf choir, I would suggest picking some songs that were rhythmically a little simpler, because the songs that they had us singing had really difficult syncopated beats and rhythms. And so when you're teaching people how to sing these songs with someone who could not play the piano very well, it was very difficult for all of us to be on the same page, literally.
I'm supporting this guy. It's his bucket list. He's my best friend of over 15 years, so we thought it'd be really awesome to do a Batman Superman celebration of the new movie, and we relate to those characters in real life a little bit.
Yep. I've been here on and off for the last 7 years, so I'm the veteran, and I'm here with my best friend Michael, and again, crossing something off the bucket list, which is being Batman and being with Superman, so it's pretty epic right now.
I'm a Christian and a comic book fan. So Saturday, during the parade, I went to a panel called Literary and Religious Themes in Comics. And it was a really, really good panel. It was done by these two people who had written papers, and they presented their papers. One was about Swamp Thing comics. And I had heard about this particular storyline in Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing goes to heaven and to hell. But I never heard it done in such great detail. And by somebody who had a real love for it. You could tell that she was really excited to share what she had researched. And the other presentation was on the DC Comics New 52 and what the presenter perceived as inconsistencies in the New 52 regarding religious themes.
Yes.
I'm a huge Lost fan, so I've been going to the Dragon Con Lost panel since 2009. And ever since the show ended, that panel is hit or miss. Sometimes it's really fun, and sometimes it becomes negative. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a panel, because I'm not there to hear why people hate Lost so much. I'm there to talk about what I love about it. And it's funny because last year was so bad that I ended up writing Dragon Con to ask them to please try to keep it positive, because it makes it so much more fun. Because it's the only one at Dragon Con. So if you're a Lost fan, this is your only chance to talk to other Lost fans about how much you love the show. And this year, you could tell that they read that email and followed through. The fans that were there were a lot more open to talking about things that they appreciated about the show and what they loved about the show. This one lady kept speaking up and saying awesome things that I agreed with. And so I kept giving her air high fives from where I was sitting. And one of the things in particular that she mentioned was how much she appreciated the Kate Austen character. I really loved that she spoke up and talked about that, because Kate gets a lot of crap sometimes, and people forget that she could be awesome. And so after the panel was over, I went up to introduce myself to tell her how much I appreciated her opinion and appreciated what she had to say, especially about Kate. And I'm no huge Kate Austen fan by any means. She's not my favorite character on the show, but I think she deserves a little respect. So I just want to thank DragonCon and thank the panelists at the Lost panel for keeping it positive, for giving Lost fans a chance to talk about the things that they love about the show. Rebecca Mader was at DragonCon this year, and though she's been in a lot of different things and she's known for different roles, I love her especially from Lost, when she played Charlotte Staples Lewis. So I went up to her table at the Walk of Fame to get a picture with her. And right before we posed for it, I said, "My name is Rebecca too." And she smiled and she said, "Hey, Bex," which I thought was really cool, because if you follow her on Twitter, you know that her Twitter handle is @BexMader. And I've always assumed that Bex was her nickname, short for Rebecca. So it was really neat that she took the nickname for herself and applied it to me, since my name was Rebecca too. And after the picture, when she was waving bye to me, she said, "Bye, Bex." And that was just so cool, that she took something that we both shared and remembered that.
I think y'all all three should rotate behind us and make funny faces while we're videoing.
What am I doing?
Is somebody running into something back here?
I was.
DragonCon always coincides with the first weekend of college football. And since I'm a University of Alabama graduate and a Bama fan, I always miss the first game. So Saturday, my friends and I hung out at the Hilton and watched the whole game together. And it was a lot of fun. Even though we missed some of the things that maybe we wanted to do at DragonCon, it was really fun to hang out together. And roll tide, because we won. I'm a comic book fan, but I had never gotten the chance to go to the Artist Alley at DragonCon. It's one of the things that I'd always kind of planned on going to, but because of other things in my schedule, I wasn't able to go. So this year I had a chance to go check it out. They had famous comic book artists, but they also had people you'd never heard of. So it was a good chance to discover somebody new. I'm a kid of the 80s, and I'm also a huge My Cousin Vinny fan. So when I found out Ralph Macchio was coming to DragonCon this year, I knew I had to go to one of his panels. Now, I like The Karate Kid too. It's always fun to watch when it comes on TV, but My Cousin Vinny is one of my favorite comedies. Star Wars panels at DragonCon are my absolute favorites. Doesn't matter if you're a huge Star Wars fan, or if you just like to go and have a good time, they are worth checking out. Go to lots of them. Though one of the Star Wars panels makes me feel like an idiot, and that's the Star Wars trivia panel. I think I knew one answer. They're fun because they always have a raffle at every panel, and sometimes you win something. The panels I went to this year were the Episode 7 panel, where they talked about speculations and theories about what the new movie is going to be about.
If you blow up the Falcon, that means that in another movie, they can rebuild it. So you get the loss, and then you get to see it be brought back, and you don't have to have, say, oh, Chewie died, which is always the go-to. And if they kill Chewie, I swear to God, I am not going to be a happy camper.
I went to one about Legos and collecting.
I got hooked on going out in search of stuff, because you never knew, even if I had been to the store the day before, whether they had put something else out on the shelf. And that's kind of an addictive portion of my personality that motivates me today.
And at that collecting panel, I ran into my old pal Simon. I've known him for a few years now, and just somebody I met at DragonCon.
There's no exclusives to purchase here, other than if you actually went to purchase something at a specific vendor's table. You don't go here for the purchases. You come here for the experience. There's a lot of people who just love it. There's a lot of people who just like watching it. Dragon Con is like a hot chick in a bikini at the beach. You don't know where to look.
This year, Dragon Con started doing panels at 8:30 in the morning. That's so early. But one of the 8:30 panels that I went to this year was a Batman 75th anniversary discussion. And I was really impressed by those panelists because they knew what they were talking about. They were very educated on the subject. And even as a huge Batman fan, I learned some things.
There was a time where diagrams of the Fortress of Solitude and the Fantastic Four's headquarters and even Peter Parker's apartment, they would devote page space to that, and people would love it.
Diagrams of Batman's utility belt? That was a big one.
So, I don't have a favorite version because it's not something that's really had like an out there version all that much in the comics. But yeah, I agree with you. You gotta have a place, your giant dinosaur.
Giant penny. Also, when you're a kid, kids are super cool. And you're not old enough to know that spelunking is kind of a pain in the butt.
I went to 2 Arrow cast panels.
My favorite stunt scene you guys haven't seen yet, so that's all I have to say.
And while those were fun, the better Arrow panel was Monday afternoon. And you could tell that these were the hardcore comic book / Arrow fans who were dedicated enough to come for one of the last panels of the convention. And even though we were probably all really tired and worn out from the weekend, it was a really good discussion. And the panelists did a really good job of moderating the discussion between everybody in the room.
Steven and I, when we saw the episode where our characters get together, and both of us were like, wait a second. We thought, like the whole beginning, I was like, there is no attraction between them at all anymore. And then we read the episode and we're like, oh, I guess we're like in love.
Because of my experiences at Dragon Con, I have now met 3 Black Canaries. One was Morena Baccarin a few years ago, who voiced Black Canary in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. And the other 2, Katie Lotz and Katie Cassidy, I met this year. During the second half of Season 2 of Arrow, I was undergoing chemotherapy. And one of the episodes that really inspired me was called Birds of Prey. The greatest part of that episode is a scene between the Canary and Laurel. In it, Laurel is trying to fight the desire to break her sobriety, and she tells the Canary that she wants to show her sister that she's strong. And during my chemotherapy, I could really identify with Laurel. Laurel was down in the dumps, and she was trying to figure out a way to climb out of it. And I understood that need to be strong. So it was really cool for me this year at Dragon Con to see both Katie Lotz, who plays the Canary, and Katie Cassidy, who plays Laurel. I paid for a picture with the 2 of them, and right before I got up to where they were, I asked them, hey, would you guys do a fighting pose with me? And I did that for 2 reasons. 1, Black Canary is known for being a skilled fighter. And 2, because of the scene between the 2 of them talking about being strong. I wasn't sure if they would go along with it or if they would be like, no, I don't think we're going to do that. But they were super cool. When I asked them, hey, would you do this fighting pose with me? They were both like, yeah, let's do it. And the picture I took with them means a lot to me. It represents my cancer journey through chemotherapy, through my surgery, and currently through radiation. It's a reminder to be strong no matter what you're going through. And that probably was the highlight of my Dragon Con 2014.
No!
So long. Yes, that's what I heard too.
Hey! I see you.
Hey, Mom! Hey!
In my 7 years of going to Dragon Con, this year was my favorite. I cosplayed, I got to meet some celebrities, I had fun fan interactions, good discussions, and I got to hang out with my friends. When I was planning my surgery for my mastectomy to get rid of my cancer this summer, I told my surgeon that I wanted to make sure that I had enough time to recover before I'd go to Dragon Con because I really still wanted to go. And so we scheduled it 2.5 months before Dragon Con, so I had plenty of time to recover. At the follow-up appointment when I saw my surgeon, he said everything looked good, and he told me to have fun at DragonCon. And I had such a blast at DragonCon this year, I think it's safe to say I followed the doctor's orders.
Boots and ribbons, all locks of hair, after old blue suits and Easter gowns. Now the sailor's gone, the room is bare, there's no piano sitting there, someone's hat left hanging on the rack. The empty chair, the wooden floor, that feel the touch of shoes no more, waiting for the dancers to come back. And the fiddle's in the closet of some daughter of this town. The strings are broken, bow is gone, covers buttoned down. Sometimes on December nights, when the air is cold and the wind is right, there's a melody that passes through the town.
DragonCon is family. So when you come here, everybody's here to enjoy fandom. We all show up, we all want to have a good time, and it is one of the greatest family reunions that you will ever have. It goes on for 4, sometimes 5 days, depending on when you arrive.
6 or 7.
Or 6 or 7 if you're really happy. I think the only bad thing about DragonCon is that it has to end.